an SAP implementation case study with a global manufacturer, as well as developments in the partnership between SAP and NVIDIA. Those are just two of the topics we're going to cover here in episode number 14 of Journey to S4HANA.
Welcome to Journey to S4HANA, the podcast that covers everything related to SAP implementations. This podcast is not affiliated with SAP and covers the realistic truth behind S4HANA, Ariba, and SuccessFactors ERP implementation success. Whether you're new to the world of SAP, an existing ECC, or R3 customer, a multinational team, or a mid-sized organization, this podcast is for you. Now, here's your host, Eric Kimberly.
Hello, welcome to episode number 14 of the Journey to S4HANA podcast. This is the podcast that covers everything you need to know about making your S4HANA implementation successful. My name is Eric Kimberling. I am the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world reach their third stage of digital transformation success. We help with S4HANA implementations as well as non-SAP implementations as well. And joining me as always is Darian Fiakuski. Darian, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to get into this episode.
Yeah, I'm excited too. We're down to the second to last episode. This is episode number 14. Next week is our season finale, and it's going to be a cliffhanger because we're going to have the head of innovation from SAP joining us from France, from Paris, France. He's going to be joining us next week. So you'll definitely want to watch next week's episode. But before I get too far ahead of ourselves, let's talk about today's episode. We've got a great guest coming up later today. We're going to talk about another implementation case study, another S4HANA implementation case study with someone named Mike Stone, who's the head of IT at a global manufacturing company based out of Canada. It's called ATS. He's going to share with us some of his lessons over the years, not just with his current S4HANA implementation, but he's an SAP expert that's been doing this a long time. He's going to be with us chatting about some of his lessons learned and advice for people going through S4HANA implementations. And in addition to that, we also are going to start off with some questions that we've uncovered from social media here in recent weeks. We'll cover some questions from the audience, and then we're also going to get into a noteworthy topic or newsworthy topic related to the partnership that SAP has with NVIDIA and some of the new developments in that. So all that being said, let's start with the audience questions. What have you got for us, Darian?
Yeah, some interesting comments on social media lately. We have the first one being digital transformation is the foundation of integrating technology with broader business strategic objectives. Without a comprehensive understanding of business technical skills alone won't drive transformation. Therefore, it is crucial to balance seasoned professionals who understand business practices with young, innovative technical minds. What is your thoughts on this? What are the theories you use for what he's saying?
Yeah, just a great question. I think it gets to the point of how important it is to have a diverse skill set to round out a complete team. You don't want to just have people that are only gurus in SAP, but they don't necessarily understand operations. You don't want just people that understand operations, but not SAP. And you want a mix of, people that are senior, have been doing this for a long time or seasoned, but also younger people that might have a fresher perspective and a unique look on not just the S4HANA implementation, but just the overall transformation in general. The same could be said too for the types of skills, not just the seniority of the resources, but also are you augmenting the operational and technical skills with change management experts and project management experts, certainly functional experts within SAP, also, on the architecture and integration side. So to be successful, you really need a pretty broad and diverse team to make that successful.
Yeah, interesting. So it sounds like our audience is on the right track. They must be listening to the things you're saying.
Yeah, that person is on track, whoever that is.
Yeah.
Great question and comment there.
Yeah, absolutely. Our second comment is the most critical digital transformation for healthcare organizations occurred over a roughly 20-year period beginning in the late 1990s. This transformation of patient health records from paper charts to digital systems for creating and managing electronic medical records, often called the electronic health records. When considered as a vital part of patients' healthcare and maintenance, this was more transformative than most new systems that provide so-called digital transformations. Overall, in the healthcare, what are your thoughts on this? Is there really more new digital transformations that the healthcare industry will see that's bigger than that, maybe, or is that the biggest that we're going to see?
It's a good question. I mean, I think electronic health records was definitely a big transformation that's been happening for decades, and some companies or some healthcare organizations are still trying to go through that and get caught up with their technologies. Mm-hmm. But I'd also say that now with AI and some of the emerging technologies around that, I think there's a lot of opportunity that patient care might be disrupted in a good way. We can use AI now to take all that information we've captured over the last couple of decades within electronic health records. Now you can start looking at patient outcomes and the results that physicians are actually achieving, and sort of start to use artificial intelligence to be smarter. Because I think one thing with at least the Western medical world is that I think it's so specialized that sometimes there's blind spots. People in the healthcare industry oftentimes have blind spots because they're specialists in one area and they don't necessarily have the complete picture, which you wouldn't expect any one person to be an expert in every aspect of healthcare. But AI could be a way for us to make more sense of data in ways that humans can't, because we're not experts in everything. So that might be one way I could see, if I were to pick an area that might disrupt healthcare or change healthcare even more than EHR, I would say AI might be it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm interested to know if any predictive type of things can come out of AI as well in the healthcare industry.
Yeah.
That would be a really interesting thing. Like if somebody got their blood work done or their genes scanned, what could AI predict? For you, I guess.
Yeah. And I know universities and doctors are always doing studies of different samples to see if they can find correlations of what's causing cancer, or what are the commonalities of people that have certain health conditions. But I think AI would probably take that to another level, because now you don't necessarily have to conduct a formal study. You could actually just take actual records from millions of patients throughout the world, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of patients, and have bigger sets of data that's well beyond what any small study that a human does could do. So if you take that sort of worldwide, you can start to really dissect and understand how genetics might affect healthcare outcomes, how certain prescriptive measures might work for certain subsets of the population, not for others, and things that we just couldn't imagine understanding now. And maybe we sort of understand it, but I feel like we're probably just scratching the surface. And I think data combined with AI could be a groundbreaking thing to really help us understand what's causing some of the things that are plaguing health and society in general.
Yeah, I think it'll be super interesting. So that's a great comment, I think, from audience member. Good points there.
Yeah.
Nate. Our last social question today is, this is something I've been raising for some time as well to one of your posts. One thing which should change for the vision of a productive output, instead of only aiming at revenue or profit, don't see customers as a money-making machine. Deliver them what is required, and it'll help you in the long term to generate revenue. I believe they're probably talking towards consultants in this way. I know this is something that obviously Third Stage really values, is really just the clients over anything else. So if you want to just share more of your perspective on that, from your perspective, what they're saying, I'd say it's probably similar.
Yeah, I agree with that comment. I think if we just do what's right for a client, it's going to, not only is it the right thing to do, but it is going to help you, I think, more to just do the right thing. It's going to help you more from a profit perspective and growth and success perspective than if you try to force fit a square peg into a round hole, or if you force fit a sale that maybe isn't relevant or important to the client. And I think that is a problem in our industry, is that we as consultants, especially those that aren't independent or the ones that are tied to one software vendor, you sort of put the blinders on and you become myopically focused on that one technology, that one solution, and your job is to sell it, whether it's right or wrong, or whether it's the best option for a particular client. So I think being able to do the right thing and just say, hey, this isn't a good fit for us, but here's an option that is, even if it means turning them over to a competitor. And we've done that too at Third Stage, where we say, we're not a good fit culturally, or, we don't have a lot of experience in your space, but here's someone who is. It's a competitor. You hate to lose to a competitor at times, but sometimes that's the right thing. And what I found over the years, it took me a long time to figure this out, is that when you do that, you build such high trust with clients that it usually comes back in some way. Either they come back, they remember this, and they come back to you maybe with an opportunity that makes sense for you, or makes more sense for you than perhaps was the case in the past. People are very transient in the space. They go from CIO roles to CIO roles, or executives to executive roles. And when they go to new companies, they'll remember you. They'll refer you to other opportunities. So I feel like that just the ROI, if you just set aside ethics and just say what's going to deliver the most ROI, you're going to get more ROI longer term, in my opinion, if you just do the right thing and look out for the client's best interest, because then they know it. They know that that's what you stand for. And at that point, that's that loyalty you can't buy. No amount of marketing or advertising, social media is gonna trump that by any means.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like our audience questions or social comments this week were really good. They have definitely been paying attention, that's for sure.
Yeah, they've been consuming our stuff. So that's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, good. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about this emerging partnership or this developing partnership between SAP and NVIDIA, which is an AI company. So we'll dive into that here in a bit more detail. And then later in the show, after we cover this newsworthy topic, we're also going to have Mike Stone on the show, who is the director of IT at a company called ATS based out of Canada. They've gone through an S4HANA implementation recently. They're a global manufacturing machinery company. And he's going to talk about some of his lessons learned from that implementation, as well as just other S4HANA implementations he's been involved with throughout his career, both as a CIO and IT director, but also as a consultant as well. He was a consultant for some period of time too. So stick around. We'll be right back with more of the Journey to S4HANA podcast. Hi, this is Eric Kimberly, and I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting Group. And I wanted to take a moment and tell you a little bit about Third Stage and what we do and how we help clients through their S4HANA implementations. First of all, Third Stage is technology agnostic, meaning that we're not affiliated with SAP. However, we do have quite a bit of experience helping clients through their S4HANA implementations. We help clients evaluate and do a fit gap analysis of S4HANA. We help them find the right system integrator. We help them negotiate their contracts with SAP and their system integrator. And then we also help with implementation planning and the implementation itself. So we help mobilize the right resources, make sure you've got a solid and realistic program to manage overall S4HANA implementation. And then we'll help with the program management, the change management, as well as process improvement. We also provide some technical services around data migration, as well as architecture and system integration as well. So those are just some of the things we can do to help you through your transformation. And if you're looking for more information about it, or if you'd like to learn more, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to just bounce around ideas or be an informal sounding board for you as you begin your transformation. You can reach me by contacting me via the contact information in the links below in the description field for this podcast. So look forward to chatting with you, and we'll see you soon.
If you are aiming for transformation success, turn to Third Stage Consulting Group. Third Stage's independent and technology agnostic consulting team helps clients define their digital strategies, define their roadmaps, and manage their transformations. With offices in the US, Europe, and Australia, our team helps the world's most forward-thinking organizations through their transformation pitfalls and risks. If you are embarking on a digital transformation or business change initiative, contact Third Stage Consulting to see how we can help you reach the third stage of transformation success. Learn more about us and download independent reports, videos, and other best practices at thirdstageconsulting.com.
Hello, welcome back to episode number 14 of the Journey to S4HANA podcast. My name is Eric Kimberling here at Darian Fiakuski. You can find new episodes of this show every week by going to journeytos4hana.com. And you can also see all the past 13 episodes that you might have missed at journeytos4hana.com. This podcast is a tech agnostic and independent view of the S4HANA world and the world of implementations and the SAP community in general. Joining me as our co-host as always, is Darian Fiakuski, who I've already introduced. But Darian, you've got some newsworthy topics you wanted to cover here today. What have you got in store for us?
Yeah, so there's an interesting development in the partnership between SAP and NVIDIA. They have expanded their partnership to integrate more generative AI capabilities across all SAP cloud solutions. This collaboration aims to leverage NVIDIA's AI enterprise software to enhance SAP's business AI, including Jolie Copilot and SAP's generative AI hub. Overall, what do you see as like the integration between NVIDIA's generative AI capabilities and impacting the overall efficiency and productivity of SAP cloud solutions? How can you see that relationship impacting their overall offerings?
Well, it sounds like an interesting idea and a good idea in theory, primarily because SAP has always been good at building those back office systems, and that's kind of what they're known for. They've got the HANA platform now that they've focused on. Obviously, they've got their hands full trying to migrate a lot of their legacy customers over to the cloud, and they've also got their handfuls trying to trying to complete all the transition of the capabilities from ECC and R3 over to S4HANA. So there's a lot, there's a lot of balls in the air that SAP already has. And for them to now try to become an AI company overnight, that's a big stretch. However, having said that, I'll be curious to talk more to Timo Elliott next week, who's going to be on. He's the head of innovation or VP of innovation from SAP based out of France. And we'll dive more into AI and innovation with him next week. But in theory, at least, I mean, I think this NVIDIA thing could be a great augmentation to Joule and some of the other AI tools that SAP has already created. I guess my question is, like, how does it fit? How does it tie together with Joule, for example? I mean, Joule being the conversational generative AI component of SAP. How is this going to replace that capability of Joule and some of the other AI capabilities SAP's already built, or is it augmenting it, integrating with it? I'll be curious to see how that unfolds. But NVIDIA seems to be a pretty big deal, or becoming a big deal in the space. I know that the CEO, I forgot his name, but the CEO of the company is out there on the speaking circuit. And I've seen him. I recognize him when I see him on YouTube or TV or whatever. So I know that they seem to be a pretty big up and coming company, a very successful company. So it'd be interesting to see how those two powerhouses or behemoths sort of come together to create a better solution. But there's a lot of unknowns there. I think that we still need to understand how it ties into the overall SAP roadmap going forward.
Yeah. And speaking of like not knowing exactly how it's going to integrate, I guess, together, what challenges do you see them potentially having with this partnership the bigger it gets?
Well, I could see SAP just being, because they're such a big company and a big software vendor, I could see them getting to a certain point with NVIDIA and in this partnership, and not abandoning the partnership, but maybe starting to say, hey, we can start to become more of an AI company and build more of these capabilities into our own solution. And again, when we talk to Timo Elliott next week to talk about innovation and product development within the SAP world or within SAP as a vendor, we'll get to hear more about that from him. But I just don't know. It's hard for me to imagine that SAP would give up that IP or not want to create their own IP over time, just like they did with, you think to what they did with the HANA platform. I mean, up until they had HANA, they built the entire SAP backbone on Oracle databases, and they partnered with Oracle, who is also a competitor. And then over time, I think they decided they didn't want to be supporting a competitor, and they wanted to have their own better solution, or what they think is a better solution for a database for this new class of S4HANA and other HANA-related deployments. So I could see them doing something similar, perhaps with NVIDIA. Maybe this gets them off the ground and gets them to a certain point of maturity in the world of AI, and then they sort of take it from there. That could be one way. Only because it's SAP. If it's a smaller vendor, I might say, it might be a longer term relationship, but obviously they see something in that partnership that they think is going to fast track their AI advancement. So I think it's a good thing. It can only, create more innovation, I would assume, or more capabilities than they'd be able to do on their own.
Yeah, definitely an interesting partnership that we'll have to keep watching and see how it develops with SAP's AI functions within their software.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So speaking of SAP capabilities, we're going to shift gears and talk with Mike Stone, who is a director of IT at a company called ATS based out of Canada. And he's actually someone that I know really well. He was actually a client of mine 20 years ago, probably. And I've stayed in touch with him, and we sort of run in the same circles over the years, both in his roles as IT director and CIO, but also in his roles as a consultant. And in his newer role at ATS, he's been involved with S4HANA implementation, or with an S4HANA implementation. And this is not his first implementation, his first rodeo. He's been involved with several. So we're going to talk about his current implementation, as well as some of the other lessons he's got from having done these sorts of implementations before. So with all that being said, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing? Glad to have you.
Very good. It's been a busy week, but glad to be here, and my first podcast.
Well, I'll try to make it as painless as possible. And I've known you for a long time, even though this is your first podcast. You've spoken at events that we've hosted in the past, and you've shared a lot of your knowledge over the years as it relates to S4HANA and ERP in general, to be honest, and IT in general. So just to help the audience understand who you are, I know you pretty well, and we know each other pretty well, but the audience may not know who you are. Tell us about you and your background, what you've done in your past, and what you're doing now.
Sounds good. I've actually been doing ERP implementations since 97, believe it or not. Wow. My first one being JD Edwards, and was able to move from JD Edwards into SAP world with Samsonite, and then spent 5 years with SAP and implemented ECC at several companies there. And then since then, I went independent, was an independent project manager for 10 years, doing a lot of different projects, a lot of large implementations, and then moved on to recently joined a company called ATS in Canada, and we are a large manufacturing company that supports manufacturing. We do a lot of automation, and that's our platforms.
Very interesting. So what, in your current role now, and that's sort of where we'll start. And I know, as we go through this conversation, I'll ask you about your current situation, and I'll probably ask you a lot about just your experience prior to this current role as a consultant and as a IT manager in other organizations. But just to start, if we hone in on your current role, what is the current landscape like there in terms of the current systems you're using and how it's deployed through the organization, all that stuff?
Well, it's a very interesting organization, actually. When I joined, it's a decentralized company that runs, right now, we're somewhere around 15 different ERPs. Our primary
15?
being 15, yeah,
Wow.
15. We like to keep it simple. And we'll explore a lot of that conversation as we go here. Our primary being JD Edwards. Our secondary is SAP, ECC, and S4HANA. And then we have Infor, Dynamics, NetSuite, Oracle EBS. You go down the list, we could probably hit every one of them. But it supports but it supports the decentralized model of our organization.
Right. So you've intentionally remained decentralized. Then it sounds like you're not. Are you trying to become more centralized as an organization, or how has that changed, if at all?
No, it was so. ATS is a Cambridge, Canadian company, and has grown up into a global company. In doing so, we've done it through acquisition, and the acquisition, as well as some grassroots growth, a lot of grassroots growth initially. But as we grew through the acquisition part, we really focused on staying decentralized. So therefore, we allowed the divisions to continue to run their businesses as independents, in a sense. The goal is that that's how they're profitable today, and we want them to be profitable tomorrow. And where we can help support, where the systems maybe hit end of life, then we do that, especially if there's no path forward.
Right. So at this point, then you've grown through acquisition, and along with those acquisitions came multiple systems from a variety of different vendors. Are there any plans then to move everyone to S4HANA or any other platform at this point?
No, like I said, it's decentralized, so it's their opportunity to run their business the way they need to run their business to be profitable. What we really want to do is, if the system becomes out of date and they don't have an upgrade path, then we give them options. And depending on the segment they belong to, will it help drive which decision, because we want to be able to support them the best way possible. So there's segments that have multiple divisions under them, though they run different ERPs. We're really going to be driving towards more analytics and system agnostic analytics.
Interesting. And focusing on the analytics as more call it the common platform layer, is going to be at the analytic level, not at the back office transactional level. You'll keep that, you'll have that remain decentralized.
Yeah. The analytics is going to be really the dashboarding, the daily visualization of what we're doing and where we're accomplishing things. And that will be our common platform. Hopefully, as we go forward, that's what we're trying to do. We're just starting down that journey. Right.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And are you getting pressure from any of your current software vendors like SAP or Oracle, Microsoft, any of these other guys you're working with? Are you getting pressure to say, hey, that's a terrible idea to have multiple systems? You should just use our system across your entire company? Are you sort of getting that messaging from the outside?
I'm lucky in a sense, because, like I said before, I've spent 15 years consulting, or better than. I've dealt with all the vendors, such as Oracle and JD Edwards. So I knew when they're coming in, and SAP, so I know coming into the meetings, and I know what they're going to be saying. And I set them straight right off the start. It's a decentralized company. We are not going to be centralizing on a single platform. It's against our CEO's philosophies, and so we're not going that way. We will keep in some cases we are doing like SAP S4HANA. We're rolling out ECC into S4HANAs because we're staying on that platform for that group because they already know SAP. Mm-hmm. If they know a platform, really don't want to switch them because the learning curve is huge. And change management, the people cost is the highest cost. The mistakes, the learning curve. So trying to change somebody off of a platform today is much more difficult. Just not logical in a way.
I'm here with Mike Stone from ATS out of Canada talking about some of his lessons from S4HANA implementations. We've got a lot more to cover. I've got a lot more questions for Mike, but first we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more of the Journey to S4HANA podcast. If you're going through an S4HANA implementation, you're looking for best practices and tips on how to make your project more successful, I encourage you to check out 2 resources that I made available to our listeners here on this podcast. First is our guide to a successful S4HANA implementation. It's a paper that I wrote based on all of our clients that have implemented S4HANA, some of the lessons we've learned, some of the best practices that we typically advise our clients to follow when going through their S4HANA implementation. So be sure to check that out. You can find that in the links below in this podcast. You can also scan the QR code right in front of you. The second thing you might want to check out is an online course that I've created. It's a course that's called the Deep Dive into SAP S4HANA implementations. And in that 2.5-hour course, I get into all the basics of what SAP S4HANA is, what it takes to make the project more successful, how to manage change, how to handle the project planning, how to manage your system integrator, as well as some case studies from some of our clients and some of the lessons learned from some of our clients. So check out that training as well. So there's 2 things you can check out here, both in the links below. One is the guide to S4HANA implementations. The other is my S4HANA training course. So be sure to check it out. And our goal here is to help you be more successful in your transformation. So I hope you found this information useful, and we'll continue on with the show.
Are you looking for ways to promote your product or service to enterprise technology decision makers and influencers throughout the world, like the ones who listen to this podcast? Major Tom Productions creates media, events, and influencer marketing for B2B technology providers. Our productions are exciting, educational, disruptive, and effective. Most importantly, they create results. Our content is unlike any other in this industry, engaging, influential, and trusted by technology buyers and influencers throughout the world. Each month, our productions reach hundreds of thousands of targeted buyers and decision makers who trust and engage with our honest and tech-agnostic content. With long-tail viral results and engagement with our content, Major Tom Productions provides a way to reach your target market and create awareness, calls to action, and a connection with potential customers. So collaborate with us today. Learn how we can feature your product or service on podcasts such as Transformation Ground Control, Journey to S4HANA, and Journey to Dynamics 365. We can also feature your brand on our YouTube channel called Digital Transformation with Eric Kimberling, which boasts over 100,000 subscribers and over 2 million video views per year. You can also participate in our in-person events, including our Digital Stratosphere Conference. Contact us today to learn more. We can tailor a marketing campaign that works for you. We look forward to helping more people learn more about and become engaged with your brand.
Hello, welcome back to episode number 14 of the Journey to S4HANA podcast. My name is Eric Kimberling here at Derry and Fiakuski. We're both with Third Stage Consulting, an independent and tech-agnostic consulting firm that helps clients with their S4HANA implementations as well as their non-SAP implementations. And you can find new episodes of this show every week by going to journeytosforhana.com. And you can also find past episodes of the show as well. And by the way, this show is sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, our company that we work for, as well as produced by Major Tom Productions. So I'm here talking with Mike Stone from ATS about his lessons learned and tips and advice based on his experience with S/4HANA implementations. Which parts of your business are best suited for S/4HANA? Is it just the ones that are already on an SAP platform, or are there any other parts that you feel like could be well suited for SAP? Or?
Yeah, well, we actually are just doing an S/4HANA implementation in one of our German divisions. And they focus mainly on the consulting side. So they actually went to S/4HANA as a preferred selection. They had the choice of JD Edwards. They were on a legacy system that was end of life. So they went to market and selected SAP S/4HANA over Oracle, EBS, or any of the other Oracle options and JD Edwards. Part of that probably is because they're based in Germany. And the resources for JD Edwards in Germany are not that high. It's very hard to find JD Edwards resources actually in Germany. I know everybody will probably be shocked at that.
Right.
But
being that close to SAP, you would assume otherwise.
So that's why we, they've selected it, and we support that. And they're getting through the process. It's not an easy process, obviously, when you're changing from one system to another. And but there was no option for them to stay on their current platform. They needed to move off of it, so they had selected S/4HANA, and they've actually selected the public cloud one. So,
okay, that's interesting. So, based on other clients you've worked with in your past consulting life, how would you summarize or just generalize the types of organizations that are going to be best suited for S/4HANA?
Well, the number one organizations that should look at S/4HANA are the ones running ECC. That's the reality. I mean, the keystrokes are similar. The tables, there's differences, but the reality is that the learning curve is much shorter. If you're going from a JD Edwards, I kind of question why. JD Edwards is a viable platform. It's still running. It's still getting support. We have 2 more releases coming this year. So I don't advocate for changing anybody unless it's actually needed. So in the case of our German division, that they've moved to S/4HANA, it was because we didn't have a solution that they could move that platform to. So they went out to market, they looked at everybody, and then they selected S/4HANA. And I think that's what you have to do, is you have to look at what are you doing today and what platform are you on, and does it have a viable life? And if it doesn't have a viable life, then you need to start making that transition to one of the platforms. Is it S/4HANA? Maybe. I don't know. I would actually go and implement JD Edwards as a brand new implementation. Right. And that's where it's a challenge with Oracle, right? Like, they've got NetSuite as one of their tools or new ERPs. Is that the right solution or not? I don't know. That's a challenge.
Yeah. Now, are you, with these different systems you're using across different parts of the organization, are you doing any sort of integration between systems other than the BI layer that's sort of sitting over the top of it? Is there anything that's at the transactional level that's integrating?
So we're working on a lot of integrations right now. It's a transition. We're in a transition time too. Initially, when I joined the company, the CIO, the prior CIO, had laid out that thou shalt be on SAP or thou shalt be on JD Edwards, and was really pushing that. Since I've joined, we've moved away from that. And so we integrate to SuccessFactors. SuccessFactors is our primary HR system, and it literally is our only one at this point in time, with the exception of one organization that we just acquired this year. So we'll put in the plan when they'll move over to SuccessFactors as well, probably. And so we integrate SuccessFactors to the S/4HANA, the ECC, and we actually into JD Edwards as well. And we're going to continue to grow that implementation into whatever ERP is needed. And we also integrate to Autodesk Upchain. So Autodesk Upchain is our PLM system, and it's our selected. It's a cloud platform that we're using and works well. So we'll continue that integration there. We use MuleSoft as our primary integration tool.
So when you guys have implemented S/4HANA at different business units within your company, and even just going to your past, as a consultant, helping different companies go through their S/4HANA implementations, what are some of the biggest challenges, if you were to summarize, some of the biggest challenges that organizations face, including your own? What are some of those things?
Change management. People change management. Nobody likes to change. And you'll probably hear this on a lot of your podcasts, because I think it's a common theory or a problem that, but outside of that, then you get into data, and data is the next one. Data cleansing, data standardization. Because we have so many platforms, we haven't standardized our data. We're looking at that now as to, how do we get there? What do we need to do? We are not going to go to a single MDM, primarily because a lot of our data starts in our engineering systems. So how do you do that? And still have our engineers be effective? We don't want to stop them from designing and building. We need them to do it as fast as possible so we can get the machines out for sign off. Some of our business is ETO, so that's getting some big machines signed off very quickly. So
what's DTO, just for those that don't know?
Oh, sorry. Engineered to order. So
engineered to order. Okay.
Yeah. So we engineer our machines and build them for each specific customer. A lot of our business is a one and done because it's based on the square footage of the facility that's available to us, and then what are they trying to do.
So you mentioned change management. That was the first kind of knee-jerk reaction, yeah. Which you're right. We talk about that a lot in this podcast and other podcasts we do. But what about those companies that are commonly on a legacy SAP product? You mentioned how it's easier to move from a existing SAP system to to S/4HANA versus moving from, say, JD Edwards to S/4HANA. Yeah. In the cases of the legacy SAP customers, is change management still an issue, or is that going to be a lot easier for them and they don't need to worry as much about the people side of things?
Well, I'll never say don't worry about people management, people change management. It doesn't matter what you're moving to and from. That's always a concern, and it's usually the first thing people cut out of the budget or reduce, and second is training. It always seems to be those two things get cut or reduced to the point where they become a problem. But is it easier to go from SAP ECC to S/4HANA? Yes. Two reasons. The functionality of the system, it's different, but it's like PlayStation 3, PlayStation 5. The buttons are still the same places. The keys are in the same places. Right. So you kind of, that move to me is a little bit easier. The other thing too, what I really appreciate from the SAP side is they did give us a roadmap. They did provide here's how you can get to, and they continue to build on that to go from ECC to S4. Sometimes I refer to it as a gravel road, and gravel roads get potholes.
Right.
Sometimes some of those gravel roads also get paved over by third parties that come along and help out and put things in place to help you get so it's a smoother ride. So don't expect it to be simple by any means, but it is going to be easier to go from ECC to S/4HANA than if you were to go from ECC to NetSuite.
Right.
And yes, I've done a little bit of work on NetSuite too. So.
Yeah, it seems like the main difference with S/4HANA versus ECC and R3 is the architecture, which a lot of people don't see. The database and just the general architecture, but the look and feel, the nomenclature and things like that are a lot more similar than if you're moving from JD Edwards, NetSuite, D360, or Microsoft Dynamics, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, exactly, and it's that little bit of knowledge that makes the learning curve that much shorter.
Yeah, figure that the change is big enough as it is. If you can make it less of a change, that's ideal. But it's still going to be a change, especially if you start getting into the some of the Joule and the some of the advanced analytics and, all this advanced emerging technologies that they're starting to bake into S4HANA. That's where the real change, I imagine, comes into play.
Yeah, and it's making sure you don't try to jump into that right off the start too, right? Like get your base processes, get your base system moved over, and then start looking at how can I make it bigger, better, faster.
Yeah.
And that seemed to be my slogan since I've joined ATS is how are we going to make this bigger, better, faster? And that might be because I walked through their facilities and seen all these great big machines that move at high speeds and go, holy, okay, we need to do the same with our internal systems.
Right.
But yeah, I see from my consulting experience, and if I look back, you always look back and you go, holy, everybody was trying to do everything. They weren't just trying to eat a bite of the elephant. They were trying to eat the whole elephant and maybe even the herd all at one time. And that's what I see with so much of the AI and people talking about AI and then Joule and things like that. They want it right away. And it's like, well, if you're doing a system upgrade to S4HANA, do that first.
Right.
Get your data straight. Get your people straight. Once that's running, then you'll start seeing a lot more benefits by then looking at AI and Joule and things like that. So
yeah, it's like replace what you already have automated, what you already have in your legacy system, and sort of do a one-for-one shift, not a lift and shift necessarily, but you're just replacing the existing functionality in a new system. And then from there, that's where you start to grow out and start to add cool new stuff to the puzzle. But if you try to do it all at once, you're right. It's just going to overwhelm the organization. It's going to complicate things. And it's going to cost you way too much time and money to get there.
Yeah, you may never get done.
Yeah.
Mind you, I've never finished an ERP implementation because I don't think they ever finish.
Right.
You're constantly making if the organizations that own the ERPs are constantly making improvements to it, how are you ever finished doing the implementation?
Yeah.
You finish your baseline, but then you've got the next feed and the next feature, the next function. And then if your business changes, like our business is constantly evolving as we acquire different organizations. How do we move? We can't just take our standard template that we've applied to 5 other divisions and go, oh, new one, here you go. And it's like, well, no, they actually manufacture glassware. Oh, we don't do glassware anywhere else. So, okay, got it. We have to come up with a new template for them.
I'm here with Mike Stone from ATS out of Canada talking about some of his lessons from S4HANA implementations. We've got a lot more to cover. I've got a lot more questions for Mike, but first we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more of the Journey to S4HANA podcast. People oftentimes ask me how I built such a strong social media following on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and other outlets. And the fact of the matter is it took me a long time to build a following through a lot of trial and error, making a lot of mistakes. Had I known that there were companies out there that could help me build my brand, I would have done that a long time ago. I didn't know that, but the good news is that there is today a consulting firm that will help you through building your own personal brand through some of their training programs. The company is called Roloff Consulting, and if you're familiar with Emma Roloff, she's someone that I've had on this podcast before, and she's well known in the digital transformation space as well as the sales space, and she's big on TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And she and her husband have started a training course and a training company that focuses on helping people build their personal brands and helping them to sell themselves digitally. So whether you're a salesperson that's trying to reach more customers or you're an individual that's just trying to build your personal brand, that's something that they help with through their training programs. And they've offered listeners of this podcast a free 5-day LinkedIn challenge. And I encourage you to check it out. I've included a link below for this podcast. If you go to the podcast notes, you'll find a link that gets you free access to this 5-day challenge where you'll get step-by-step guidance. You'll get real results. So you'll get some tangible results from the program. And you also get a special offer at the end of it. So it's exclusive to listeners of this podcast. Be sure to check out the link below if you want to work on building your personal brand, or if you're in sales and you're trying to reach more people. Whatever the case may be, check it out. It's free to listeners of this podcast. You can check it out via the link below.
If you are involved in any sort of digital transformation or business change initiative, you'll want to download the Digital Transformation Report. With its comprehensive overview of business and technology trends and best practices, this report is a must-have guide for any transformation project or executive team. Download this free report by visiting Third Stage Consulting at thirdstage-consulting.com. You can also visit our website to learn more about us or download independent reports, videos, and other best practices. Again, visit thirdstage-consulting.com today to learn how you can take your transformation to the third stage of success.
Hello, welcome back to episode number 14 of the Journey to S4HANA podcast. My name is Eric Kimberling here at Darian Fiakuski. We're both with Third Stage Consulting, an independent and tech-agnostic consulting firm that helps clients with their S4HANA implementations as well as their non-SAP implementations. And you can find new episodes of this show every week by going to journeyto4hana.com. And you can also find past episodes of the show as well. And by the way, this show is sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, our company that we work for, as well as produced by Major Tom Productions. So I'm here talking with Mike Stone from ATS about his lessons learned and tips and advice based on his experience with S4HANA implementations. When you're implementing S4HANA, when you've implemented S4HANA in the past and been on implementation teams, you obviously need to find a system integrator or a technical implementation partner that can help you through that process. What are some of the things to consider or some of the lessons you have from choosing and managing those outside system integrators?
Well, the one thing I think everybody forgets about system integrators, they're in business. They're in business to make money. Right. They're not in business to make your life better and not make money. So just like you're in business to buy, build, whatever your products are, services to make money. So you have to own the projects. You can't let them come in and manage the project and implement for you. You have to own it. You have to manage it. They can come in and be part of the management team and report back to you. But at the end of the day, the company has to really own the project and know where it's going. And know that, when you send out an RFP, that you're not giving all of the skeletons in your closet. You might think you are, but I've been on a lot of projects where we think we got all the skeletons, and then halfway through even a build phase, you find another dozen skeletons that nobody talked about. Well, we do this customer this way because they buy X billion dollars of stuff from us, and we're not going to change it on them because if we do, we could lose the customer. And nobody told you that because it's something that's done far down the line or something. Or it's something that one-off, unique, one person does, and nobody asked them during the RFP process. So I'd say that's the biggest thing is know who you're getting to partner with. Make sure you have a good relationship. Understand that they're in it to make money, but also understand that you want them to make money. Because if they weren't making money, first of all, they're not making money. They might not be very good at consulting. Two, they're not going to be there in 2 years when you need them again to help you with the next upgrade or the next AI feature function that you want them to help you with. So there is some advantages of partnering with some of the more senior organizations. And when I say senior, I don't necessarily mean the big 4 or 5 or 6. I don't know what they're at now.
I think it's 4, but it could change anytime.
Let's stay at 4. and always realize that the consultants you're bringing in, you're hiring them as if they're employees. So you have the right to refusal. I've seen a lot of projects where the business gets 5 consultants assigned to them, and they think they have to stick with those 5 consultants, and they never ask for a resume ahead of time. I'm doing a review of a consulting group right now, and they've sent me the 6 people, and I've reviewed them, and I'm questioning why. They don't have the experience. They don't have the industry that I'm looking for. So why do they make them special to come into my organization to train them on my dollar? Because now I'm going to be paying for them to learn my industry, to learn my systems, to advise us, to implement stuff. No, I'm not a training organization. You can make money on my projects, but I'm not going to train your people. So,
well, I think you bring up it makes total sense, and I think you're bringing up an even bigger issue or point, which is you mentioned questioning resources or saying, hey, can I see the resumes? Or maybe this resource isn't working out. They're just not a good fit with our team. Maybe the personalities are clashing, whatever. You might have a bunch of reasons why, you might want to make a change on your SI team. But even beyond that, you start to look at things like, why do we have 50 people on this project? Do we need all 50 of these people? They're billing me by the hour, or you've compressed this timeline down to this amount, and we're operating at this monthly run rate that reflects that compressed time frame. And then if you extend it, now it's not like you're just going to spend the same amount of money. Now you're going to spend that same monthly run rate just over a longer period of time. So it's important to ask questions like, can we really get this done in 18 months, or is it more like 24 months? And if it's 24, let's cut back on the monthly run rate and make sure that we spread that out versus trying to jam it all in up front, knowing full well that we're probably not going to get it done and we're probably going to run way over, which, to your point, the SI makes more money if they run over. So you kind of have to be the one to be the responsible parent in the room to say, hey, SI, this doesn't make sense, or tell me why it makes sense. Help me understand why it makes sense. And just because you're not an expert in S/4HANA doesn't mean you can't ask critical questions to educate yourself and make sure you're all on the same page before you get too far into the project.
Well, and project plans. Project plans are the key. You build a plan, then you work the plan. If you don't build the plan, you can't work the plan. And I've seen a lot of people going, well, we're agile. I have yet to see an ERP go live with all the modules you said you want to go live with, one at a time. So you can be as agile as you want, but you have to go through an integration test. You have to go through user acceptance testing. You have to go through mock cutovers. So is agile really agile?
Yeah, I agree. And does it align with ERP? Because ERP, if you think about it, the concept of ERP runs counter to Agile, and Agile runs counter to ERP. ERP is meant to tie together end-to-end business processes, where Agile is more focused on, more incremental, isolated improvements to a business and doing it fast, which is great. You can always roll out the technology in that way, but post go live. But you're not going to roll out, 15 different modules by going through an Agile, or at least you're not going to roll it out in a way that works if you're in a 100% Agile environment.
Yeah. So I think that's a big one that I've seen over the years. When Agile started coming out, everybody's like, oh, we can do this Agile. And it's like, you still have to go live together. So you're not Agile. And you have most ERP projects have a finite budget. They have a defined go live. Again, is that Agile? No. So let work backwards. When I did the project planning prior, as a senior project manager, I started backwards. Everybody always started going from here and laying out all the work and then seeing where it landed. I always worked backwards. I went, okay, I know I need take the end date. I know I want 4 weeks before the end date to be quiet so I can prep for my go live. I know 2 weeks for user acceptance testing. I know 4 weeks for integration test 3. I need 2 weeks between that and integration test 2. I prefer 3 integration tests. I know that I want 2 weeks in between those 2 test cycles. So, and usually 4 weeks is a solid integration test. So right there is your testing cycles. So you have to be done by X date if that's when you want to go live. Now, what do you need for resourcing? You figure out now what your workload is, and you start stacking that up to figure out what you need for resourcing and how many tasks you have to get done by then. And that usually helps you go, holy crap, there's no way I can get all of that configuration done in 2 months. So that means our dates have to move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that should help plan out where you want to go.
Yeah.
And what's a reasonable timeline.
Yeah.
But again, I prefer 3 integration test cycles. I prefer at least 2 mock cutovers so that you know what you're doing, what you're getting into. UAT is usually in the same environment as IT3 so that you already know the data is good. User acceptance testing should be a rubber stamp sign off. It shouldn't be a surprise. One thing, when our first project that we worked together on, Eric, we brought a lot of business people in during the integration test 1 and even more in integration test 2 and integration test 3. We had pretty much everybody in Canada touching the software. So it wasn't a surprise when we went, okay, we need a user acceptance testing sign off Everybody buzzed through the testing. It worked, and we went live. Did everything work perfectly when it went live? No. Everything we expected to work worked. There were some glitches, but you're going to have glitches. As long as you don't know about them before you go live, then good, because that means you've covered all your bases. If you know about them and you have a workaround, that's even better.
Makes sense. Now, what you mentioned, project plan. You mentioned, how to find the right system integrator. You talked a little bit about just some of the general planning things that need to happen, having a realistic plan, all that sort of thing. What other things would you leave the audience with that are things that are really important to accomplish early on? Maybe even before you start the implementation in earnest. What are those key things that an organization could do to get ready for an S/4HANA implementation journey?
In my opinion, it's never wasted to understand your current business processes and have them documented, because that helps your change management, especially if you're moving from another platform to any other one, SAP, Oracle, Dynamics, whatever it is. By having those, that helps your change management team identify where the gaps are and what's going to really impact your end users. And then data cleanup. I had a great consultant one time tell me, you look after the data will look after you. And it's not far from the truth. It's if you look after all the data, when you go live, the data will be in the right places at the right time so that you can run your business. And, I've applied that several times in projects and it's worked. So if the wheel goes around, why create another one? Exactly. Yeah. If it's working, don't fix it. Makes total sense. Well, I really appreciate your time here today, Mike. This is super helpful and great overview of some of the things you've learned over the years. It's always hard to cram it into about half an hour, but that's a good flyover view of some of your lessons learned. I appreciate you being here today. No problem. Thanks a lot, Eric. And maybe we'll get talking some more when I have a little more time at ATS and I can drive more into what we're doing there. Well, that was good stuff. Thank you again, Mike. I appreciate you being here today. And we've got a couple things we want to debrief and follow up on based on that conversation, some of the lessons that Mike shared. First, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more of the Journey to S/4HANA podcast.
Are you looking for ways to promote your product or service to enterprise technology decision makers and influencers throughout the world, like the ones who listen to this podcast? Major Tom Productions creates media, events, and influencer marketing for B2B technology providers. Our productions are exciting, educational, disruptive, and effective. Most importantly, they create results. Our content is unlike any other in this industry, engaging, influential, and trusted by technology buyers and influencers throughout the world. Each month, our productions reach hundreds of thousands of targeted buyers and decision makers who trust and engage with our honest and tech-agnostic content. With long-tail viral results and engagement with our content, Major Tom Productions provides a way to reach your target market and create awareness, calls to action, and a connection with potential customers. So collaborate with us today. Learn how we can feature your product or service on podcasts such as Transformation Ground Control, Journey to S/4HANA, and Journey to Dynamics 365. We can also feature your brand on our YouTube channel called Digital Transformation with Eric Kimberling, which boasts over 100,000 subscribers and over 2 million video views per year. You can also participate in our in-person events, including our Digital Stratosphere Conference. Contact us today to learn more. We can tailor a marketing campaign that works for you. We look forward to helping more people learn more about and become engaged with your brand.
The last thing you want to have happen is for your digital transformation to end up in court. I've been doing this for 20 years and I have seen everything. My name is Marcus Harris. I'm a software and technology attorney focusing my practice on drafting and negotiating software-related contracts and litigating software disputes across the country. Feel free to reach out to us at taflaw.com. We'd love to talk to you about the litigation process and what you can expect.
Hello, welcome back to episode number 14 of the Journey to S4HANA podcast. My name is Eric Kimberling here at Darian Fiakuski. You can find new episodes of the show every week by going to journeytosforhana.com. And you can also find more information about the sponsor of this podcast, Third Stage Consulting, by going to thirdstage-consulting.com. The show is produced by Major Tom Productions. And we just had Mike Stone on the show from ATS. He talked about the good, the bad, the ugly, his battle wounds, and all his lessons from having done these sorts of S4HANA implementations in the past. What were some of your thoughts and takeaways, Darian?
Yeah, overall, the conversation with Mike, I thought, was really interesting. I think he highlighted a lot of things like change management and data standardization as just key challenges organizations face while implementing SAP or just going through any ERP transitions at all. Well, I had a couple, follow-up questions to debrief the whole conversation. One was, can you elaborate on the specific advantages and disadvantages you've experienced while maintaining a decentralized ERP system across multiple platforms?
Yeah, well, the advantages are, we'll start there because sometimes that's easier. The advantages of that decentralized multi-platform environment is that it's a path of least resistance. You don't have to worry about ripping out those systems and trying to replace them all at the same time and get everyone onto a common operating model. It also is in some ways better or easier to accomplish what the local needs are of each of the regions or business units that are using different systems, because presumably the assumption is that they've chosen and deployed a technology that makes the most sense for them, but not necessarily the rest of the organization. So from a change management perspective and flexibility perspective, it can add a lot of value there. The downside is that now you've got to maintain all these different systems. You've got to figure out how they all tie together. How are you going to integrate them? Where's the data going to reside? How are you going to keep a single source of truth? How are you going to train people in multiple systems over time and whatnot? So there's a lot of disadvantage too, and there's a lot of value and efficiency that comes with being on a single platform and a common business process and a common tool set. The ROI is oftentimes there, but the problem is the cost and the risk to get there is oftentimes too high for some organizations. They just don't feel comfortable with it. So I think a lot of what you've got to look at is, first of all, if you're going to go to S4HANA in that sort of environment, you've got a multi-platform environment now. Now you're going to move everything to S4HANA. You can do that, and certainly that there's a lot of reason why you might do that, but you want to make sure that you manage your risk and have a solid and realistic plan, and that you can ensure that you're getting an ROI to take on that cost and risk. Because again, it's probably going to be cheaper for you just to stay on multiple platforms, at least in the short term. It's going to be less risk in the short term. So, that's one way around that is to, or one thing you need to do is make sure you navigate and quantify what those costs and benefits are of both scenarios for you as an organization. And then you also have to look at your risk profile too. If you're a super conservative company that just is super risk adverse, rather than just telling yourself you're going to become less risk adverse and just go do this big project, you might say, well, we're going to go at a much more slower measured pace to get there if that is where we go. Or we might say, we're perfectly happy with this multi-platform approach. It's working. If it's not broken, it's working pretty well. Let's not put risk into the system or into our operations. And so that's perfectly fine as well. I know software vendors, especially, SAP and some of the system integrators might totally disagree and say, no, you should absolutely implement S4HANA across your entire company because it benefits them, the vendor, SAP. But you have to ask yourself, does it benefit you? And is it the right solution? So I think you just have to be super objective about it.
Yeah, that makes a good point. And that was actually one of my next questions when you talk about doing you have a couple different vendors or platforms that your company is using. How do you then manage those relationships with the ERP vendors when they are really pushing you to just go to one centralized system?
Well, you just have to remember it's your company. They can pressure all they want. Doesn't mean you have to do it. You're always being sold to about lots of different things in your business and personal life, and you say yes to the things that make sense and no to the things that don't. So I think the sales part of it, you just have to take it all with a grain of salt. And the world is not ending if you have multi-platforms. It may feel like it, or they may tell you it is. The world is not ending if you don't move to S4HANA across your entire enterprise by 2027 when SAP says you should. There's other options. There's third-party support options. You could do without support for a certain period of time. The world will not end, despite what SAP might say. The world is not going to end if you don't go all in on SAP or S4HANA right now. But I think as far as managing multiple vendors, that is a little trickier, and you just need to make sure you've got that sort of vendor management function within your IT group that can manage the licenses and the relationships and the integration and the upgrades and the support and everything that goes with it, which does put more pressure on your IT organization. But again, the cost benefit, you have to look at that. It might be worth that extra cost of managing multiple relationships, knowing that you're not taking on the risk and cost of going through a massive transformation that you may or may not be ready for.
Yeah, super interesting. I think there's a lot of good points made in the conversation today with Mike. It was a really good conversation overall.
Yeah, he's a great guest. We'd love to have him on, as he gets further along in his career and continues his career. I'd love to hear more about his journey and what other experiences and lessons and learnings he has along the way. So it should be a good conversation to have him back. And thank you to the audience here for joining today. Really appreciate you all being here. We're down to the wire here. One last episode next week, but it's going to be a doozy. It's going to be a good cliffhanger season finale where we bring on straight from Paris, France, VP of Innovation from SAP Direct. So we're going to have Timo Elliott on the show, who I've had a chance to talk to prior to next week's episode. And he's a really engaging, energetic guy, very smart guy. And I'm curious to hear his perspective of what's going on in the world of SAP innovation. So we're going to talk about that next week. So be sure to stick around. If you've missed any of the past episodes of this show, be sure to go to journey2s4hana.com. You can see or listen to all of the past episodes that we've done so far here in season 1. So I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you, Darian, for hosting again. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week on Journey to S4HANA.